Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card is a beach scene. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp set called Surfs Up, and I have the matching dies for that. The first thing I'm going to do is position this stamp in my MISTI, just in case I have to stamp it twice. I'm using Memento ink, and I'm going to be really careful because there's a giant hole in the middle of this stamp. And if I press too hard on it, then I can get some ink in that gap, and then it'll get on my paper. So I'm just doing a very light tap, and that's why I'm doing it in my MISTI so that I can stamp it again if I need to. And it turns out that once is enough for this. So I get a really nice impression. What I'm going to do is die cut this out with the circle that comes with the Surfs Up set. And then to make coloring these different parts easier, rather than masking them, I'm just going to cut it into pieces and work on each one individually. So I'm going to start with the bottom one, and I have some Salty Ocean Distress ink. And I'm just going to be really careful to color the whole thing without sort of messing it up and bending it, since it is really thin. So I'm trying to move away from the center as I do that. The next layer of the ocean is going to be Tumbled Glass. I wanted a dark blue and a light blue. And then what I'm going to do is take that same tumbled glass and use this on the top portion. I'm just going to ink up the edges, so it just kind of breaks up the white. So I have a little bit of blue in between. Now it's kind of hard to see if I'm really actually getting color on this, but if you put it against white, you can see, yes, I am getting quite a bit of color. And then finally, for my last part, it's the sand, and I'm using Antique Linen for that. Now that I've finished coloring all my pieces, I can put them back together. So I arranged them on my craft mat, and I'm going to put them together one at a time. So I'll start with the top and the sand and get them just fitting right in with each other where I cut it. And then I'll take some surgical tape and tape the back of it. And then I'll take my next piece and fit it right in there. It's just like putting a puzzle back together. And then I have the last piece. And so you can see it now all fits nicely. I'm moving on to the other elements. I'm going to stamp the surfboards and the palm tree onto some Neenah Solar White cardstock with Memento ink. And I'm going to color them with Copic markers. And so these are all the colors I'm using for the surfboards. And notice that I'm coloring the inside and the outside first, because it's a very small area and I don't want it to bleed. So in the perfect world, you would wait until it completely dried and then add that second color where this yellow is right now, because it could really easily bleed into the red, and same with the other surfboard. So I just sort of delayed a little bit as much as I could. Next, for the palm tree, I'm using E57. I'll just go around the top, the left edge, and the bottom, and then just fill the rest in with the E55 along with the coconuts. For the palms of the palm tree, I'm going to color all of them with one single color, YG25. And that's just filling it in. Notice I'm really not doing a lot of shading on these elements. Then for the inside of these leaves, I'm going to start at the base. I'm going to flick upward, and I'm using YG67, which is a really dark green. But I'm just going to rotate around and flick upward and kind of come up the leaf a little bit on what would be the top of the leaf. And that'll be my palm tree. So I have the dies, so I'm just going to put them all on here and run it through my Big Shot. Now I wish I would have centered the stamp circle that I cut out, because I could have used the negative of that, but now I've got to cut a new one. So I'm just going to center this circle in the top portion of this A2 size Neenah cardstock. And then I'm going to cover the whole side of it with Scotch foam tape and pop it up onto that same Neenah white card base. For the insert, I'm going to put Tombow Mono Multi Glue all over the back of it, because I want it to kind of be able to move around a little bit to make sure it gets placed right. So I'm going to push it kind of through that hole so that it adheres to the card base, and then I can move it around if I need to. I've positioned all my elements where I want them to be, so I'll pick them up one at a time to adhere them. For the back surfboard, I'm going to use 2A glue. And that way it's adhered directly to the scene. And then for that surfboard in the front, I'm going to cut a little piece of a Stampin' Up! Dimensional, put it on the back, and pop it up just slightly in front of and a little further down from that front surfboard. So it looks like they're kind of stacked in front of each other. And then for the palm tree, I'm going to use the dimensionals again and place that on top of the hill. I'm going to make part of my sentiment black so that it stands out a little bit more. So I'll stamp the word summer onto black cardstock with Versamark ink. I'll sprinkle it with some white powder and heat it to set it, and then I'm going to trim out that word. And I'll position it in my MISTI, and I'm using my grid sheet to make sure I get this enjoy your portion of the sentiment correct, because I am stamping directly on this nice scene that I've created. And it turns out that it was fine. And then for the sentiment, I put a dimensional where it's going to go on the inside of the circle, and then 2A glue where it's going to be on the outside of the circle, so it will be popped up with the circle. And put it right there. Notice it's a little bit off center, and that's just because I didn't want it to be exactly symmetrical. So I'm just going to press that down to adhere it. And I have a few details. I'm going to add this little bird that comes with the set. I'm just going to add 3 of them in different directions, and one here at the top. And then one more detail is I'm going to take a chocolate chip marker and add some dots in my sand just to add a little bit of texture. Some of my dots are close together, some of them are further apart. I'm just kind of making it more random. And then for the bottom portion of my water, I'm going to use my gel pen, which is still dry. I feel like I use this in every video. I really need to get a new one. But I'm just adding some dots here and there randomly. Notice off camera I'm writing with it because that helps get the ink moving. And that is the card for today. So a cute little set, and it's a really cute scene. It's got some other elements I didn't use that I might use next time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.